Good afternoon and welcome to the Firaxis live stream, our first live stream of Civilization VII. I'm Pete Murray. I'm going to be your host today, joined by Sarah Engel. Sarah, welcome. You're our community manager here at Firaxis.
I am, and I am so excited to be here today.
And we've got awesome members of the Civilization VII development team with us today. We have Andrew Fredrickson, the lead producer of Sid Meier's Civilization VII. We also have another Andrew, Dr. Andrew Johnson, our lead historian for Civ 7. Andrew, thanks for coming in. And joining us, the undisputed conqueror of kingdoms, the one who lays waste all before him, Carl, the Carlbarian Harrison, designer on Civ 7.
Thanks, Pete.
Awesome. Well, we've got a great stream for you guys to share today. What I'm excited to tell you is that Civilization 7 is coming out on February 11th on PC and consoles, day and date 2025. That is incredibly cool. We have a great stream to show you today. We've got leaders and civs to show you. We've got a deep dive on Antiquity, but that is not all.
We also are going to be showing you guys a sneak peek into an age transition. So moving from Antiquity Age into the Exploration Age. And not only that, we're going to be showing off a little bit of Ashoka and the Mauryan Civ as well. We're going to be taking some time to answer some questions live from chat, so definitely ping your questions as you have them. And finally, we are super excited to bring back First Looks, and the first of our First Looks is Hatshepsut, so absolutely stick around for the end of the stream.
All right, well, we've talked about the Antiquity Age, and ages are just a huge part of what makes Civilization 7 different from previous civilizations. So, Andrew Fredrickson, for people who are maybe new to this idea of ages, what do ages bring Civilization 7?
Ages bring so much to the franchise. These are a new way to look at the gameplay, the history that opens up so many opportunities for what we can do with content and features. And, you know, we've divided the game up now into these 3 distinct ages. And with each one, there's so much to unpack. And we're going to get today to start with the Antiquity Age, the first of those. So we'll jump, I think, pretty much right into gameplay. We got that up on the screen here. Carl, you want to tell people what we're looking at?
Yeah, so here we are at the very start of Antiquity. We're playing as Augustus of Rome. We're here on our map. We have our very first unit, and we're going to start up our civilization and advance a few turns here.
Right, and as a quick disclaimer for everybody watching, just a reminder that this is a work-in-progress build. Please keep that in mind as we show it off to you. We're excited, but just in case we see any funky visuals, keep that in mind. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, so our first unit here is what's called a founder. This is different from our traditional settler unit in that it creates a capital city. All our settler units, which we'll see a little bit later on in the game, now create a town. So the founder is a separate unit from the settler.
I think that's actually just a great moment to highlight how many things in this game are both familiar and new at the same time if you've been playing the franchise for a while. You know, the things that you may see when you first start this is you would expect it to make a city. And like Carl just walked us through, there's some unique differences there. You can see that throughout the entire HUD. We've got our yields in the upper corner, and a lot of those are going to function the way that those of you who played Civ are familiar with. Some of them are new, and others are, like the influence one we're just looking at, others have changed a little bit. Like happiness is going to be something, it's a full yield now, and we're going to get to what that means and how that affects things a little bit later. But I think that just throughout this stream, we're going to start covering as many of those details as we can. There's going to be so much more than what we can talk about. But this is really going to be a deep dive through all of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, why don't we go ahead and start our capital?
Of course, yeah. So I'm going to settle right here in place. We are sitting on a minor river. We have 2 kinds of rivers in Civilization 7. Minor rivers are sort of what people are used to. It runs through the center of the hex like this. And then we have our new navigable river. The minor river flows into this navigable river right here, so we're going to settle right at this transition. Fresh water is still important. It gives a happiness bonus to the settlement, so yeah, we're going to settle right on this. That gives us that happiness bonus. And if we zoom out here, we're able to see that we get all our culture borders around those initial tiles. And we're going to start by choosing production. We have no other units. We've just created the settlement and have nothing else. We can see here that our first 2 choices are a scout or a warrior, and both of these take only 1 turn. And that allows us to pick what unit we want to start with, whether that's a scout or a warrior. It'll finish immediately, and on turn 2, we'll have that unit ready to use. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a scout here so we can start exploring the map.
Before we go on, I think this is just a great moment to like talk about the fact that we are living in antiquity, and I want to give my other Andrew here a moment to just talk about what it means to be in this age and what the whole encapsulation of that moment in history is.
Yeah, I think for me, when you divide up the gameplay into distinct ages, it allows you to really focus on what's interesting about that point in history, what's interesting about that point in time. And when we look at antiquity, however you define the time period, we're looking at a point in time when states are not the dominant power or not the dominant influence in the world. You've got states and you have vast areas which are populated. There are people there, but they're not governed and organized in state formations. So antiquity is a moment where these kinds of the foundations are built. You're building social systems, you're building architecture, you're creating language communities. For instance, Latin and Sanskrit and classical Chinese are these kinds of empire-oriented, centralized languages that are going to get more complicated when we move on into later periods. So having a focus here in the first stage on that kind of building the groundwork, I think lets you kind of play with the dynamics a little bit.
Absolutely. Speaking of building groundwork, let's go ahead and advance the turn and we'll get our first tech.
The radiance of the new world came into being bathed in nectar, bathed in love.
So here is Gwendolyn Christie reading out our quotes now. For those of you who've played a lot of Civilization, you know that when you get into when you unlock a new tech or a new civic, you get a kind of a quote. And we're really happy to have Gwendolyn Christie reading these.
We love Gwendolyn.
Absolutely. But also, what I think we wanted to do with the quotes here is to bring a sense of gravitas back to these quotes. Sometimes they're directly related to whatever you're researching, and sometimes they're more evocative. And also remembering that the story of civilization is not based in one part of the world. It's a global one. This is from the Priakan inscription in the Angkor complex in Cambodia. And again, talking about the new birth, something which kind of goes with agriculture and is evocative about that.
All right, Carl, take us away.
Sounds good. So we've discovered agriculture. That's our very first technology. You are locked into that at the very first turn. And on turn 2 here, we're able to select a new technology. So we're going to open that up. And our choices are sailing, animal husbandry, or pottery.
I think this is a great moment to talk about what you're going to get from these things, and the fact that I don't have to make the choice right away. I get a little bit of time to see what's going on in the world, and then I get to choose what I get to do. And why don't you tell us why we might choose something over something else?
Yeah, absolutely. So the techs this time do not unlock tile improvements for us. Instead, it unlocks the yields for those tile improvements. We're going to see a little bit more about how tile improvements work here in just a moment. But what our initial choice here could be informed by the terrain that's around us, the resources that are around us, and what yields we want to try to focus on first. So I see that we have some sheep nearby. I see that we have some cotton nearby. So those are pastures and plantations. So we want to try to find those. On pottery, we have plantations, and on animal husbandry, we have pastures. I see more sheep than cotton, so I'm going to pick animal husbandry here to try to get that pasture yield.
Awesome.
We also have our new choice of production because our scout finished, and we'll come back to the scout here in just a moment. I am going to lock in a warrior as our next unit to build so that we can get that defense, exactly. And let me select our scout.
Before we move them, I think this is a great moment to talk about another one of those changes that can be both subtle but also really important. And there's the various terrain types here. And Carl, why don't you talk about how that affects our movement in here?
Yeah, absolutely. So terrain is different than it has been in the past. We now have these rough tiles here that we can see that have this really rocky look to them. And we have vegetated tiles down here. Vegetation is actually different by biome. So we have our forest here, but say if you were in tundra, you would have taiga. So the type of vegetation that you have does change. And then we have wet tiles. So here, this is marsh, which appears in grassland. That also changes by biome type. These are now turn ending. In previous games, in Civ 6, we had these cost a certain amount of movement points from the unit. We can see we still have movement points as a stat on the unit, but rather than each of these terrain types costing a certain number of those points, they end the movement entirely.
I think this is a perfect example of a lot of changes you're going to see in here, where we try to take the complexity out, but keeping the interest in.
Absolutely.
And this is actually a really great story was shared with me, where this idea of the turn movement ending was actually came from Sid Meier himself. When he was talking about, Ed and him were talking about how do we want to adjust things. And I noticed though your scout is moving through this. Why is that happening easier?
Yeah, I said it's turn ending, but we actually are able to go straight through this because it's a scout. Scouts are able to ignore those terrain rules, and they're able to move faster and farther through the terrain, which is going to let us explore more of the map. But our warrior that we're going to build, that will have to obey those terrain rules as normal. I will point out that the minor river is turn ending even for the scout. You can't just cross rivers easily. You do have to spend a turn there to try to get across that. And of course, on navigable rivers, you will embark your unit. So now we have Grow City. This is another one of those things you were talking about where we've changed it from how it works in the past. No more do we have a worker or builder unit. Now, when it's time for your settlement to grow, you get to do this Grow City action, which brings us into a top-down screen, and we're able to select what tile we want to grow into, and a tile improvement is automatically placed on the map, and our settlement begins working that land.
Yeah, I think it's just a huge change. Obviously, we'll talk about what the red means a little bit later. There's a lot of import there, but I think being able to just directly control not just what you get, but which direction your city is growing is a huge change for us. And again, keeping that interesting decision clear and at the forefront.
Yeah, which direction we grow is actually a huge part of this. When you select one of these tiles, you'll actually culture bomb all unowned tiles around it. So those are acquired by your territory and your borders will expand. And you have to grow linearly. So we talked about this sheep resource up here. We can also see gypsum here. We talked about the cotton down here. If we want these resources, we have to grow directly to them tile by tile and expand our city out from that city center. So we have to decide here what resource we want to focus on. We do have another sheep down here. So I want to try to go down here because this cotton is going to give us 2 food and 2 production when we pick it up. So I want to go for this first, and then later we'll go up and get that the sheep and the gypsum up top.
And obviously we see the yield icons too, which we're going to earn those as soon as we pick it. We get that improvement and we get those yields immediately.
We do, yes. Although we have to unlock the improvement tile yield from that tech tree. So picking this will give us a woodcutter, but we have to still unlock our woodcutter yield, which we will do in that tech tree.
Yeah.
So here we can see that woodcutter got placed down, our borders expanded, and now this cotton is inside our territory. We own it, but we are not working this yet. We do not have the cotton itself.
Excellent. Let's give that scout some more orders.
Sounds good.
I really love seeing all the variety in the map, even just for the amount of tiles that are shown right here. I know something that our players have called out, which is really cool to see, is sort of those terrain height differences.
Yes, we can see them right here. I'm not able to move up onto this tile even though I'm next to it, because right here, this is a cliff, and this is an inland cliff. There is, like you said, a terrain height difference right here, and I have to obey that as I move around the map. It's not a mountain. This is a mountain right here, but next to it is still this rocky escarpment that I have to circle around.
I think it becomes really interesting for what that means to explore the map and how my ability to explore changes and grows over time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and when you have the scout with a scout dog and you reach a navigable river, the dogs also embark.
Yeah, they're with you, don't worry.
We do have a question actually on the scout dog, which we know is a vital aspect to the scout. Jared from YouTube asks, can we change the scout dogs to cats? Vital info needed here.
There isn't a cat that I can recall right now, but there is going to be some fun surprises coming for what you can do with different dogs and how those are earned and unlocked and chosen based on who you are.
We love the scout dog here too.
I was having a conversation with Ed at Gamescom, and he was telling me that the cliffs and the highland areas actually interact with a rainfall model that underlies the map gen for Civ, and that actually feeds into how the game generates navigable and minor rivers as well too. So it's just a cool way that interacts with how the world gets built in Civ.
So I did a unique action with our scout here. We have a few new actions with our recon units. So first we have Lookout. This allows us to place a watchtower where the scout is, and it increases our sight range by 1. It will sleep the unit, so it'll just stay there on that tile, acting as that lookout, letting us see more of the terrain. This is really great for keeping an eye on enemies or particularly areas of interest. And then we have Search. Search does the same thing. It increases your sight range by 1, but this lasts for only 1 turn, and it reveals all discoveries within the range that you are able to see. Discoveries are our new goodie huts, and there's a variety of types of them. We have revealed 2 with this action. Over here we have Wreckage, and then here
Ruins.
we have Ruins. There it is. I was looking for it, and it was at the very bottom. It's Ruins. So we're going to grab this Wreckage first, and then we're going to go over to those Ruins and pick that up.
Yeah. Another great example of a change we're going to see right here.
Yes.
So Andrew, do you want to talk a little bit about what we see here?
So this is the discovery system. Again, gives you a little bit of a small story that's attached to these places on the map. In addition, there's other narrative events that may come up based upon certain decisions that you make in the game, certain actions that you make, who you are and who you're playing and how you're playing. So expect a little bit more.
I just love getting them because not only are they awesome things to see on the map and make it fun to move around, but it's like you were talking about, like really enshrining what it means to be an antiquity. These are stories, these are experiences that people, might have had that let me, understand what was going on there. And it's got the gameplay choice here for me as well. So which Carl, I'm sure, will make the best possible choice.
I hope so. So we do have 2 choices here. We found a campfire that some soldiers have abandoned, and we can either take the supplies or demolish the camp and erect a banner in this location. That will give us 2 different yields. If we take the supplies, we will get 50 gold. If we demolish the camp, we will get 50 happiness towards the next celebration. We'll talk a little bit more about what celebrations are and what they do later on. I think I'm going to take the gold. Early gold is very strong, lets you do a lot of different things, so I'm going to take those supplies.
Speaking of gold, we have a lot of questions from chat asking about economic victories, how economics work in the game. Can we speak a little bit to that?
Oh boy, that's
It's a big question.
It's a big question. I think that we can talk a little bit about it, but the biggest spot is going to be a little bit later when we get to talk more about the
watches
legacy path
butterflies
and the victories. But rest assured that the economic gameplay is definitely an area where we've expanded quite a bit and given you a lot of things. And again, making that gameplay relevant and different for each age.
Absolutely.
And I think we'll show off a little bit
Yep.
of trading too.
We're going to get to some trading. We'll get to some legacy paths about that as well.
You want to talk about this quote?
Yeah, this is just Kobayashi's. It's part of a haiku there. That is just. I believe it's haiku. I'm not sure exactly, but it's the idea of imagining the perspective of a domestic animal looking outside and seeing what else is out there, what other lives are there. It also goes along with the era as well. Again, this is a place where, in many places, it was healthier and more free to be outside of states, and here we are playing the kind of expansion of agriculture and militarism and hierarchy out into the land, kind of forever altering the world. I think one of the things also in terms of like the wreckage bits that you found up there, and maybe some other things that you'll discover soon, is that this idea of those blank spaces on the map are not blank. That we were to imagine that they're also inhabited. They're lived in by people. Yeah.
Other people that are inhabiting
Right.
the space. All right, so I think for our next piece of production here, we're going to go ahead and make a granary. The granary will improve our farms, pastures, and plantations. This does put the yield directly onto those tile improvements, onto the map itself. The saw pit will improve camps and woodcutters. We do have a woodcutter right now, but we also have a plantation. And the granary, because it's going to improve pastures, is going to help both the plantation and the pasture that we put on those sheep. So I think this is going to be our first building. When we create a building, we create a new urban district. If we are selecting a new tile, each district can hold up to 2 buildings. So I could put it into our city center here. We have a palace in the city center, so that's 1 building, and it can hold up to 1 other building.
Let's go ahead and start so we can show the people what that looks like.
Yeah, so if I select this, we can see where I'm able to place this. I can't place it onto the navigable river because that is technically a water tile, and this building does not go on water. If I were to place it into any one of these tiles here, it would create a new urban district. We would then lose access to that land. We can't put any tile improvements there. Those are on rural tiles only. So when we create a new tile improvement, like we did here with the woodcutter and here with the plantation, that creates a rural district that has a tile improvement on it.
I think what's great to note is that we see in the different colors here, not only, so we can, like you said, we can expand with it where we already have, we can grow to a new area. We can even, if we decided down the road that we wanted to urbanize and take that woodcutter out, we could eventually put buildings here. Probably don't want to do that quite so early, but it is important to note that you can take those things over.
Well, and what happens when you take those over is you actually get that population to move someplace else. So you're telling the people who are working that woodcutter, hey, I need you to go do something else. And then they can go and relocate themselves to a new tile, even a new type of tile improvement. So I could say, go make a farm, go make a pasture.
It's a great way to see how, things are built, in sequence and layer, and as you grow and as your needs change, you can change.
Yes.
And actually, Sukratact from Twitch asks, do you lose the tile yields for building an urban district?
You lose the natural tile yields. So natural tile yields do not continue to remain on a tile with an urban district. They go away completely. If I were to build on top of this woodcutter, we can see on this tile tooltip here, we have 1 food and 1 production. And it's notable that that production comes from having discovered animal husbandry. That's the woodcutter yield. So we unlocked that, and now this is giving us that production. That would go away. We would never have access to that again. Instead, we would have access to the building yields that we're adding here, which with this granary is 2 food. I am going to put this up here. And the reason that I'm selecting this particular tile is because buildings and new urban districts function similarly to new rural districts in that they culture bomb surrounding tiles. And when you add a new rural district, a new tile improvement, you are able to extend it off of any tile that the city already is working. Not just owns, but is working. So that's the urban and the rural districts. So if I build this here, once it completes, we will then be able to grow directly onto the sheep tile and then directly onto the gypsum tile. And that will allow us to grab those resources faster.
Do it.
And just for anybody who's not familiar from Civ 6, the concept of culture bombing is where you expand your borders and it grabs adjacent tiles as well too.
Thank you, Pete.
That's all right. That's we're all used to calling it that. And
There's so many terms and changes, it's hard to keep track of what we have to explain. Oh, this is great. So we met somebody on the map here. Can you pull out a little bit so we can see what we see? So this is a scout, but this isn't just a barbarian. This isn't just another civ. We've added this increased, possibility space to what you find. Like Andrew mentioned with the discoveries, there's a story there. It's a lived-in place. These are people who live in this world, and these ones happen to be hostile. We got that red ring around them where we got to watch out for them. But we don't necessarily only have to fight them. These aren't just like in Civ 6 we had barbarians, and the only way to deal with them was combat. We could fight them, or we could have some other involvement. And I think that Carl's going to try and find where they're from on the map, and then we'll see what some of those additional interactions look like.
And hopefully they won't attack us.
Oh, yeah. Well, you got the warriors now.
We do have the warriors, but you know what? I want to keep exploring with the warriors. So we've got our scout moving to the north. I'm going to send our warrior to the south, and then we might be able to find some more things down here. We want to try to grab as many of those discoveries as we can. That'll give us early yield, and that's always a good thing.
Speaking of discoveries, I do have a question from Tom's from YouTube. He asks, will Eureka's be in the game?
That is a great question. We do not have Eurekas in the game or inspirations. Those function a little bit differently than they have in the past. We still have some of those goals, but we don't have them give the boost of science or culture that they have from Civ 6.
I think you'll see that some of the other systems, like with the discovery system and the stories that pop up, it's a different way to scratch some of that gameplay itch.
Right, a little more like of a narrative kind
Yeah.
of approach with some of these discoveries, so to speak, that players will recognize, but it's taken on a new form.
So here we have our first civic. Like we are locked into our first tech at the very start of the game with agriculture, our first civic is also locked in with chiefdom. It just takes a little bit longer to unlock. Civics unlock social policies, which are a card-based system that our veteran players will be familiar with. Here we get 2 social policies. We have charismatic leader, which will give us culture, and we have tool making, which will give us production and science. I'm not going to go straight into change policies yet. I'm going to back us out here, and we're going to go to a different screen first. We're going to select what government we want. So if I select what government to choose from, we get these 3 options: classical republic, despotism, and oligarchy.
Yeah, this is a great chance to talk about another one of those changes where we're still making a government choice, but it's decoupled from some of the things it was tied to in the past. You see here we're talking about a celebration, which is something we sort of hinted at a little bit earlier. And this is going to be a significant change. The happiness yield, in addition to a few other things, we'll keep talking about that one, coming back to it. But here, as your excess happiness is going to certainly build your civilization to having a celebration when you reach a threshold. And based on what government you have, you're going to get to choose how do you what happens in your city. How do your people celebrate? In a classical republic, are you getting the culture? Or are you going for the production on wonders? In despotism, is it the science, or are you going for infantry? So choosing this is really about choosing what you want available to you later as you have those moments.
I think we're going to go with classical republic here.
Yeah. Rome, a classical republic?
Indeed.
Shocking. So we got a question from Georgia Antipin on YouTube, and Andrew Johnson. Dr. Johnson, this is one for you. Is cultural progression in Civ 7 based on real-life civilization transformations?
Cultural progression meaning
Moving through the culture tree.
In a sense, it sort of is taking. I mean, to get any kind of causality when we're talking about, the development or we're talking about changes in society. We see more change and alteration, and not really a kind of evolution. Whereas a civics tree and a tech tree and something like Civ has kind of an evolutionary model where things get kind of increasingly something or other. But I think here, instead, we're thinking about the points in that age. If we look at the age as a whole, what are the inflection points within a particular society or various societies in there? And especially for civics, we're talking about the development of statecraft, of forms of government, as well as other forms of sort of artistic expression, social life. So here, we're looking at military discipline on one hand, the idea of a professional army. We see this developing some places, Assyria in a big way, versus mysticism, which is a little bit more of a general term for organized religion, or the beginnings of organized religion. But also, what else we got there, Carl?
So we have some unique civics. These are unique to Rome. Once you complete chiefdom, you do unlock a Civ unique civics tree. This has additional abilities for your Civ that allow you to continue to power up your civilization's ability as you continue to progress through the age. This is also where you get your unique infrastructure. Here we see Temple of Jupiter and the Basilica, both of which are unique buildings for Rome. We get a lot of stuff from this tree. We are going to pick some of these later, but the first thing that I want to do is pick discipline, because discipline will give us our army commander. Army commanders are a brand new unit to Civ 7. We are going to talk more about them here in a moment once we have one to show off, but this will give us our legatus. And the legatus is a unique commander for Rome, one of our 2 unique units, and it does some really cool things. So the earlier we get it, the better. And I'm going to lock in discipline as our civic choice.
I do want to just say, I think just to go back to that question you had, I think it is really great to say that because of these 2 trees, it gives us 2 different ways to look at the history. Like, about these people and about the world. And I think that when we're looking at that sort of shared civic history for the age, like you said, we see the things that were more common or more generalized, and then we see the things that are very Roman. And those are things where the narrative team and the design team work together to find stuff that has such an identity that you feel more Rome when you're picking those things. You get to see what that was at that height in history.
Yeah, and I mean, for Rome-specific questions, Carl has a degree in classics.
Classical culture.
Classical culture.
Yep.
So I'll defer to Carl on
Thank you.
Latin things.
Yeah, it was great to be able to put that to use to make Rome, to make all of the different antiquity civilizations that we have, and it was a lot of fun.
Carl has more depth than just being the barbarian. He's
Thank
got some
you.
historical
I
depth
appreciate
to
you
him.
saying that.
Like everything around here, there's layers.
There are layers.
Exactly.
We do have a new narrative choice available, so I'm going to go ahead and click that, and we'll see what we have here. So this is a Roman unique story. So the Senate is in session. The voices are raised in conflict. A lone senator speaks out against imperial fiat, while Augustus's supporters seek to drown him out. So we have a few different choices here. The first two of these will give us a quest. This is kind of like what I was talking about earlier with the question about Eureka's and inspirations. So we do still have some of these kinds of goals that can appear. We can either choose to build 3 monuments, which will give us culture, or we can choose to have a commander that gets 3 promotions, and that will give us plus 15% production towards training infantry units. Or we can choose to not have a quest and then one of those goals and just back out of this and get 33 gold.
And something like this too allows you to kind of role play a little bit too. In that build 3 monuments, what does that mean? That means have
Lots of
multiple
culture.
cities. Yeah, well, also spread out, have multiple cities.
Yes.
So this can also be thought of as a choice between having a de-centered, more expansive society versus doubling down on the army, which is something that Romans generally did not do. Is that right, Carl?
I think that it depends on what period of Rome you are looking at.
So you're Augustus.
So Augustus is actually really interesting. We do have decoupled civs and leaders this time. You can have any leader lead any civilization, and Augustus himself we do not have set up to be a militaristic leader.
Right.
Augustus is set up to be an expansionist leader, and he's all about having lots of towns to support a very strong capital. And that's because Augustus founded the Pax Romana, which is a period of peace around the Mediterranean that lasted around 200 years, and it began with his reign. Not that he didn't do any conquering, but he had this big expansionist period where he had lots of provinces, founded lots of new settlements, and that's the part of Augustus that I wanted to focus on. Whereas with Rome, Rome is a conqueror. Rome is a military civ. They have some really strong military units. They have this unique army commander. And so when you pair those two things together, you get sort of this really interesting examination of what Rome was over the course of its entire history.
So in a way, this story allows you to kind of pick, okay, what kind of Rome are we focusing on? Are we focusing on Republic? Are we focusing on Empire? Or do we just not care and want money? And that's the third.
Exactly.
And one of our players asked the question, faculties intact from Twitch. Are these choices because of playing Augustus, or are these choices because of playing Rome?
So you're probably better able to answer that than I am.
This is going to be playing
this whole
Augustus.
Yeah, this is because you're Augustus.
Yeah.
This story is because you're Augustus.
Right.
So it's not that the choices are so much, it's that this whole story is Augustus's story.
Right.
How do you want to lead into that? And versus if you had even if you were still Rome, but if you had picked a different leader, you would have that leader's story coming up.
You might, and sometimes there's combinations. Sometimes it triggers if you are Augustus and Rome. Sometimes the triggers might be more hidden or complex than just simply you are this or you are that. Yeah.
That's what makes them available, and not that it's always guaranteed. Yeah,
Of course.
I want to know what Carl's going to pick. I'm dying here.
Yeah, sorry. So because we are going for discipline as our first civic, and we're trying to get that legatus as early as possible, I want to try to go ahead and give it promotions, and I think we're going to go with only the strength and loyalty of the army matters. It's right up
Carl
my
Mauryan.
alley.
You
Yeah.
can give Carl a degree in classics, but the warlord will win in the end.
you can take Carl to university.
Yeah. All right.
All
right, so we have command
Yeah,
units.
get some
Let's
units.
keep moving this this scout.
Show us
We're
more
trying to get
map.
these ruins over here, so
Get
we're
some
going to move
exploration.
along. And this is another cliff where we can't go straight down, so I'm going to use this opportunity to try to search again. We're going to reveal some more land around us and see what other discoveries might be nearby. So no new discoveries besides what we had already revealed, but we
do see a path. We also see a path around if we want to get there.
We do see a path around now that we didn't have to move all the way over there to see. We're able to see that there are no other independent units, hostile units nearby, no other civilization units nearby. We have a much better grasp of the lay of the land without having to go move to every single one of those
Absolutely
points.
one of my favorite things to do early on is just start using that ability. Down the coast here, and again, you're showing stopping on that river.
Yep, the river ends that
Turn
movement.
any movement here. All right.
We met someone.
हम अशोक ही संसार के मध्य बिंदु के एगो महान राजा और एगो महान पापी.
All right. Right here, we'll sit for just a second and start talking a little bit about our new diplomacy system, because there's so much going on here. Some of it you may have picked up, some of it you've seen, but when we meet a leader now, it's not just hi. This is a hi and a little bit about how I want to approach them. And on top of that, we get to talk about our influence here. So you've always got the ability to have a neutral greeting. That's just sort of the traditional, hey, we've met. But now you can sort of, how do I want to approach this leader? Based on who they are, based on how I'm planning to play this game, I can decide from the very beginning what foot do we want to start off on. And then I'm going to have to use my influence, which is that new yield for our diplomatic system. That's going to it's an opportunity cost. I can choose to go this way or that way, but down the road, I'm not going to have that diplo for other things. So I don't know if we've already got a plane here, Carl, but you're.
I feel like Carl's getting as a character.
Actually, before we jump in, who did we meet?
So this is Ashoka, one of the more famous emperors in Indian history and of the Maurya dynasty, and we will see the Maurya is also a playable civ, and Ashoka here is playing Maurya. His lines here, a lot of these will reflect either actual things that the individual said. In this case, Ashoka's story, the part of the character that we're leading on is this moment in Ashoka's life where he is engaged in a military campaign, achieves dramatic success and slaughters his enemies, and then suddenly realizes that he may have done something wrong. He converts to Buddhism and begins to spread Buddhism all across northern India, and is attributed, his model of kingship is also attributed to parts of Southeast Asia as well, though the historicity of that is in question.
And we're also going to show up more of Ashoka in this stream as well, which is exciting. I just want to take a moment to call out the awesome soundtrack of the game. I do have a question. I know, Andrew, you've got a lot to say about the soundtrack, which is awesome. Magistat from YouTube asks, will each civilization have their own soundtrack, and do they mix together with others as the ages progress? So maybe we can answer that and then just speak to the soundtrack as a whole as well.
Yeah, every civ has its own theme, right? And so what we're hearing right now, as we meet Maurya, we're hearing Maurya's theme. And I get excited about this one, just because it touches upon, other lives that I have. But it's a Indian style music. It has, though, within it, it's in Pali is the language here. It's a Buddhist chant. Buddham Sharanam Katsani. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dhamma. I take refuge in the Sangha. So it fits so well a feeling of South Asian Buddhism. That feels very Ashoka to me, and I think the music for Civ 6 was fantastic, and I think if you liked that, you will like this as well.
Yeah.
So Andrew actually posted a really wonderful message in our internal message board the other day, thanking the music team for their work on this and sharing that story with everybody. So that's part of the fun of working on a Civ game is, seeing people's connection to it kind of get excited in the course of this. All right, Carl, go ahead and make your choice, and we'll move on from here.
I do before. You're going to point something out too, but I also want to call out to our art team just the experience of being able to see the two leaders together, and as we go through, you'll get to see the reaction as Carl decides how he feels about Ashoka, or at least how his Augustus feels about Ashoka. We get to see that play out from both of them.
Sure, yeah. I am actually going to pick friendly greeting here, and that's because I want us to show off some of the diplomacy options that we have in the game. And by picking friendly, we might be able to foster that relationship some, show what we can do with influence. We'll have other opportunities to attack people. I'm not worried about that. So we're going to start with friendly greeting and see what that does.
Spending a little bit of our influence yield to do so.
He's breaking character. Carl.
Yeah.
Carl is.
I'm worried about
Well,
it.
it's Augustus, not Carl. That's doing it.
Okay.
So now we're taken into our diplomacy screen with Ashoka. So we can do open borders, we can do our normal denounce military presence when they're near our borders. We have a series of endeavors here, and these are unlocked by the leader that we're playing and the attributes that they have. We'll talk more about attributes later on. Right now we can do cultural exchange, and this will grant additional culture to each leader. I'm the one proposing it, so if he just accepts it, I'll get 4 culture per turn, and Ashoka will get 2 culture per turn. He can also choose to support it, which forces him to spend some influence and say, hey, this is something we want to do together. We're going to do this in the spirit of cooperation. That increases the yield for both leaders, so we'll both get 6 culture per turn, and that'll last for 10 turns. He can also choose to reject this, and he has to spend influence in order to do that. Accepting is the only option that is free. If he rejects it, it hurts our relationship. And I don't get anything. Neither one of us gets anything.
And I think this is a great moment to highlight that our diplomatic system, in addition to having the new yield, is much more about these actions, these endeavors and sanctions, and pushing my relationship with the leaders up or down, or capitalizing on the relationship that I've already built. It's not just a deal table. We don't have a deal table where you're just passing resources or money back and forth. This is much more about the dynamic interactions between the two of them.
And this list of actions is going to expand as you research more. Right.
It will expand.
Yeah.
And we have some other things down at the bottom here that we're going to take a look at later on. We're going to start with this cultural exchange and see whether he accepts it, supports it, or rejects it. So he's supported, he spent influence in order to support it, and we both are now getting 6 culture per turn, which will update on our top bar yields here in a moment.
And we got a quick question from chat. H Vector asks, does the influence get refunded if the other side refuses the offer?
I believe so. I do not specifically recall off the top of my head.
I believe that's correct.
I believe that's correct. I believe you get your influence back. You do not, however, get their influence. So when they spend influence to reject it, you don't get that, but you do get yours, what you spent refunded. So the other thing that that doing a friendly relationship greeting with Ashoka did is it revealed his capital to us. So if we pan up here on the map, we are able to see that settlement location now, and we have an idea of where they are on the map. And that revealed both capitals, so now he has this same visibility on us and knows where we are on the map.
Excellent.
We'll be able to show more of the different architecture of another civilization when we load into a later save.
Yes.
So, Carl, what do you think? Do you think we should load into that later save, see the end of Antiquity?
Yeah, I
here?
think it's a decent time to do that.
Yeah.
It's just, I saw you put down the farm there. I think the animations in this are so cool. There's always something going on,
Yeah.
And, your founder's goat is jumping around, and
Yeah.
the chickens are flapping, and
we'll get to see some of those military unit animations when we get
I know
into
we're
the
really
save.
excited to see exactly how commanders manage to pack armies in. Contrary to some popular belief, it is not, in fact, ingesting them and carrying them around.
Correct. And then when they unpack, they are not physically spitting the units out onto the map. It's more of a deployment.
Yeah, it's more of a military strategy, not a...
Yeah.
While we're
Edible.
loading into that next save, I know something that our players have been dying to hear more about is just what happens on the other side of the map, right? When you start in Antiquity, what's kind of going on during that fog of war? we're going to be speaking to him more in exploration, but is there anything we can kind of speak to?
Yeah,
now?
that other side of the map is real, and it's there, and those civilizations are growing and developing on their very own. You won't interact with them directly, but because it is the same game world, you know, they're building what you're going to end up dealing with later, or interacting with, I should say. And they may even beat you out for a wonder, I think has happened to Carl earlier.
Yeah, it can happen, yeah.
All right, so here we are at Rome later on in antiquity. What are we looking at here?
All right, so yeah, we are much later on. We have our city built up a lot more. We have a bunch of other settlements around too. Here we have Rome, the capital. We have walls around a couple of our districts. We do build walls district by district now, urban tile by urban tile, and that adds defenses to that tile. So when you're trying to capture a settlement, you have to occupy each of those defended districts, the districts with walls. We also have our unique quarter. So when you have a civilization with unique buildings, a civ with unique buildings gets 2 buildings. You can place those in different tiles if you want to. Each building does have different adjacency yields. Those are on the buildings themselves now. And so you might want to place the buildings separate to try to maximize the yields that you're getting if you have a particularly good spot for one of them. But if you put them together into the same tile, it creates this unique quarter, and that has an additional effect that is different for every single civ, is different for every single quarter, and it powers you up in some really interesting and cool way. For Rome, it gives you +1 culture and gold for every single tradition, which is a special type of social policy that you have equipped in your government. So we have built our forum here. It also adds additional art to the tile, so we have this really cool center plaza section that represents the Roman Forum that gets added to this when we put them both into the same tile here. We have a few other things going on. If we pan around our map, we have some towns. So we talked about towns earlier. When a settler creates a new settlement, it starts as a town. Towns collect all of the yields around them, and any production that they collect gets converted into gold. It does not stay as production. Towns don't produce buildings for themselves. Instead, they can purchase buildings, but they can only purchase certain ones. Not every single building that a city can build is available in a town. So we're going to...
This is just a great example of, you know, finding that fun and the interest is like, sometimes you want to get bigger, but you don't necessarily want to manage all those production queues. If you want them, you can convert a town into a city by paying for it. But there's a few other things you can do. You can actually specialize a town. And with that, you're going to be able to choose a more specific use for the yields. Carl's got one right here.
Yeah, so that was actually a city. I panned to the very first thing, and I was like, this is a town. That was not a town.
Sorry.
That was a city. This is a town. So when we open this up, we can see that the list of buildings that we have here is different than what was available in that city. So we have a couple different buildings on this. We can still purchase our units with the gold that we have available, and then this is the focus that we're talking about. So right now we're dedicated to growing this town, and once the town has reached 7 population, we are able to select a different focus for it. So when we open this up, we can see there's a list of these that we can choose from. Each one has a different effect, and allows us to commit this town for the rest of the age to doing one of these things. So when we select farming town, for example, we'll increase all of the food that this town is producing, and that food then goes back to connected cities. We can see that right up here. They send 100% of that food to all of your other cities, allowing your cities to grow and get really tall. And tall cities are really interesting, and we'll take a look at a tall city here in just a moment and see what that means. So let's go ahead and lock that in. This does make this locked for the rest of the age. We can switch it back to growing itself if we want to. It will continue to grow on its own if we want to have it do that, but I think switching this...
And Carl, are those kind of the 160, the hundreds kind of numbers that we saw there, those are turns or gold? Chat wants clarification.
Yes, so that is gold. That is one of those in-progress build things that you mentioned earlier. So those are gold numbers. It's just using the wrong icon.
Got it. And I do have another question from Twitch. Irscath asks, at the top left, there seems to be a city icon with it showing 1/3 after we initially founded our capital city. Are we limited in city count,
That is
During
a
the
great
ages.
question.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
about to talk about it. So
Amazing.
we'll hold on to that for just a few more moments. We'll come down here and we're going to take a look at this unique legatus that we talked about right away early on. We discovered discipline. Obviously, we've got our legatus. And we can see that this has a 4 on it. That's the level of this commander, which is the number of promotions that it is available to choose. You can bank promotions if you want. You don't have to choose right away. The level still increases, but we have assigned all of these promotions. We can go ahead and jump in and take a look at what those are. So when we open our commander promotions, we can see that there's a series of promotion trees for us to pick from. This allows us to specialize our commanders in a variety of different ways. Bastion is all about defense. Assault is all about offense. Logistics is all about different things that your commander is able to do around the map. Maneuver is about moving your commander and your troops. And then leadership is focusing on the commander itself and making it the best commander it can possibly be.
So not necessarily just about leading troops. Some of these are about
Other things, yeah. So if we take a look at this leadership tree, the very first one that we've unlocked here is Zeal. So when we station this this commander in a district, which is place it there, just have it occupy that district, it'll increase all the yields in that settlement by 5%. So this is more of a peacetime thing. This guy is not necessarily out in the field doing a lot of combat. I have him back at home. This pairs very well with Bastion, which is why we've put these two together here. And so it's like, if I get attacked, I'm defending really well, and in the meantime, I'm boosting my settlement.
I think one thing that's really important for people who haven't may have missed it previously is that your commanders are your only units that gain experience points. So you're not gaining it with every combat or
Yes.
every unit on the map. It's now centralized, so you have a less to manage, but at the same time, these bonuses, obviously depending on which one it is, but most of them for the combat affect not the commander, but all the troops around it.
Yes.
They have an area of effect, so you don't have to worry about leveling up one unit and losing it and that one's gone. You can bring reinforcements in and they will immediately be brought up to speed because they're part of that army that this commander is providing all of their bonuses to.
And I saw in chat people asking if you can lose a commander. You can, which is devastating.
You can. You can get it back. They will respawn. There's a certain amount of time that passes before the commander will respawn, and there is a promotion that decreases the amount of time it takes for your commander to respawn. If you want to make your commander really good, that's the way to go for it. But yeah, you want to target those commanders first when you see them out in the field, particularly if that level number is really high, because it means that they are buffing all of those units around them, and they're a big threat. So if you off those commanders, if you defeat them, it weakens everything else around them. So here we can see a really good example of that. The first Bastion promotion, Steadfast, gives a +2 combat strength to all the land units around the commander when they are defending. So this does not help my attack. This helps when I get attacked. The command radius at start is 1 tile. So we can actually see this when we select the commander. The movement here is a blue outline. The command radius is this white outline. So all units that are in these 6 hexes around the commander and the center hex itself are all within the command radius. There are ways to increase the command radius, so it can go up to 2, and that is very strong. The experience you were talking about collecting, that is also within command radius.
Yeah. So any combat that happens with those units is going to add XP back to that commander. And I think there's also a great moment while we're looking at this. We can see that UI. We can see, not only do we see the commander, we can see the specific units that are packed in there, their health. And on top of that, there's a bunch of new abilities that we see in there.
Ton of new abilities.
Yeah, we may not get to talk about all of them, but there's a lot of things where your commander can issue group-wide things or things that they can do while they're packed. That's how they can we often say vacuum, like suck in all the units around them, or they can pack them individually.
Or eat them.
No, not eat them.
Oh, right,
They
right.
join
It's
the
not an
eating
edible
them.
thing.
So there's a lot you can do, but this is the Legatus, so they have a couple extra special things even on top of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Legatus, like we said, is unique to Rome, and the thing that makes it unique is as it gains levels, gains promotions, it is able to create settlements. And that's sort of representing the fact that Rome, particularly Augustus, at that period of the Roman Empire during the Pax Romana for those 200 years, They settled their veteran soldiers into provincial territories and created new towns, new locations, and they settled those veteran soldiers out. That was the promise for their service, was farmable land later on. And that is represented here with the Legates. So as they gain experience, as their troops have done lots of fighting, they can then settle those troops and create a new town. So here we can see we have a settlement charge. On this unit, you get 1 settlement charge for every 3 promotions the Legatus has. This one has 4 promotions, so we can create a settlement here, which we will do. We get to select which tile that goes on. We're going to put it right here on the minor river because, again, fresh water is very important. You do get fresh water if you're adjacent to a navigable river because you can't settle on that river tile. But for a minor river, it has to be on the minor river hex, not adjacent to that. So we're going to put it right here. We get that, and something has popped up here. A milestone has completed. So let's talk about what milestones are.
Yeah, this is one of those really big changes we talked about earlier about the ages system, that now we want to recognize your progress in each age, as well as building towards that grand victory at the end of the final age of that whole campaign. And in this one, we're moving down the Pax Imperatoria legacy path. And if we hop over to that one, you see here on this screen, we've got the paths. There are 4 paths in every age. They're going to fall into these common families. We can hop over and take a look at the economic one in a minute. But the one we just unlocked here is, bam, there you go. So now that we're going to get some bonuses that'll help us develop further.
Yeah, so this track, the legacy path here is to have 12 towns or cities total in your empire, but conquered settlements counts as 2. So you can achieve this entirely peacefully. Rome is actually really, really good at that. They can have all of these different settlements out there and just create it peacefully, but conquering does count double if you take somebody else's. And then you gain progress as you advance in steps down this track. So we've hit this very first step. This does increase age progression. We'll talk about that meter once we return to the main map here in a second. And then we get some initial rewards. So we get a militaristic legacy point. We get a 2 options in the next age, legacy options, and we'll show what those are when we do our age transition. So we get an option to get a military attribute point or an expansionist attribute point. When we continue to progress, we get additional benefits. So even more legacy options will unlock, more points to spend on those. And then if we complete this path, we get a golden age. And that golden age unlocks a golden legacy option in the next age. Only one of those can be selected per age if you were to complete multiple golden ages. And again, we'll take a look at that later. And you get all of the rewards from what you've done previously as well.
So they're helping you in the next stage, and they're also going to help you in the final age with claiming that ultimate victory. Because the more you've invested in any particular legacy over the course of your campaign, you're going to have various bonuses to do things faster towards your victory in that final age. So it's an opportunity to progress on many different paths. You can pivot your legacy from the one that you want to prioritize in one age or the next, but you may also choose to double down. So it's a nice strategic option for where am I going, and they're all geared towards that age.
Right. This stuff is going to be different in subsequent ages. These legacy paths are specific to antiquity.
Yeah. So exactly. Like codices in my empire is incredibly important in the antiquity age. That's when these, like you talked about earlier, there was a lot of stuff being explored and written that were enshrining it. In different ages, we're going to care about different things. And in this one, built Silk Roads, very evocative of antiquity, of people bringing those resources across, getting those resources assigned to my settlements. And so this is, going to be a completely different one. Hopefully I don't know if we'll talk about it yet or not, or maybe in the future, but one of my favorites is our exploration economic victory. It's a very different gameplay.
So we have a lot of questions coming in about religion and how religion plays on this. And I know we're going to talk about it a little bit later on the stream, but
yeah.
you want to touch about
how... So in Antiquity, we do have pantheons, and we are going to show those off later on. And religion itself does make an appearance in the game. It's featured more heavily in the exploration age. And as we said, that the legacy paths do change by age, so what these look like in exploration are different. But we'll dive into the details on all of that, I think, at a later time.
And I think one of the reasons why religion plays more of a role in exploration is because this kind of fits more the historical model. Whereas, you know, in what we normally think of as the Antiquity era, many of the world religions that we know now were founded. Some were still yet to come about. They became such a large and grand political force. When you think about, you know, the Catholic Church in the Middle Ages, or the expansion of the caliphates in the Middle Ages as well, this is a story for a later time.
All right, so I promised that we would get back to this settlement limit question, and we're going to do that right now because we saw in the legacy path that in order to win the military legacy, you have to have 12 settlements. Captured settlements count double, but if you were to do this completely naturally without capturing anything, as I said, you can do. It is possible even though you have a settlement limit. We can see up here, we are now, after settling this town, we are now at 6 out of 5 settlement limit. We have exceeded our settlement limit. This is a soft limit. You can have any number of cities that you want to, as much space as there is on the map. You can only settle, you have to have 3 tiles in between each settlement, so you can't be right up, 2 tiles away from something else, just like in Civ 6. You have to maintain that distance. But as much space as there is, you can have as many settlements as you want. For every single settlement that you exceed your limit, as we can see right here, you do get a -5 happiness penalty in all your settlements. Settlement happiness is tracked individually, so we can see here that this settlement is now unhappy. But if we look at some of our others, they might still be happy, and we can see that our total happiness yield is still positive. So we have some wiggle room. This settlement might not be doing so great, but our empire is still doing fine. And as we said before, this total happiness number is being deposited towards our celebrations. We want to try to maintain that. That'll get us, that's how we get more social policy slots, is every celebration you unlock, you get a new social policy slot.
In addition to choosing the bonus of how you want to celebrate.
In addition to the celebration. Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So there's both the temporary bonus of the celebration itself, and then the unlocking that you can use that policy however you want to,
right,
as you go throughout the rest of the age.
Yes. So what happens here is the settlement limit we can exceed. We are penalizing ourselves, but we are adding all of the tiles that this settlement is going to gain, all of the yields that's going, still goes into our empire. That still matters. It's still helpful. What we do have is a difference between wide versus tall gameplay as a result, and that means something different in Civ 7. You can have a wide empire within your settlement limit. You can have a wide empire that greatly exceeds your settlement limit. You can have a tall empire that exceeds your settlement limit. Tall really here is about having those towns that are feeding a couple of cities, and that comes down to specialists, which we're going to see here.
Well, let's do that. Yeah, let's get this through, and we got to start taking over a city, too.
We will take over a city here. So we have this growth event, and we have unlocked the ability to add specialists. Earlier, our urban tiles were red, and you said we're going to come back to that. Now they are blue because we can place a specialist. And when we place a specialist down, it adds a base of 2 science and 2 culture with a penalty of 2 food and 2 happiness.
So this is a great way to, if I don't want to go wide, or if I've gone as wide as I can enhance my yields either in a different direction or without necessarily needing more territory.
Yes.
So.
And the more towns you have, the more food is being funneled into your cities, the taller that they will become.
Excellent. Well, let's get out to that combat here.
So we'll go ahead and plop this down on the one that has the most yields.
They're getting some bonuses.
They are getting bonuses.
Adjacencies and wonders.
Yeah, they boost your adjacencies. So now that we've placed a specialist, we're going to come up and we are going to start our combat. So up here we are ready to attack Aksum, our neighbor here, led by Amina. And we have a Legatus with 5 promotions, 5 levels that is ready to start attacking.
Yeah, why don't you go through that? We can start talking about this stuff, because a lot of the turn-by-turn combat is going to feel really familiar, but here, declaring war is really interesting. You'll notice that we don't have a negative relationship with her, but we can still declare a war. In this case, it's a surprise war. It costs no influence, but we're going to have some penalties in that combat. because it's some war weariness, I believe. So we're going to go ahead and declare that surprise war on Amina.
So Amina here is speaking Hausa. She is from the opposite side of the continent as Aksum. Aksum's on the Red Sea, and Hausa land is in what is now Nigeria, and she's also distant from Aksum about 1,000 years. But one thing I really do love hearing in Civ games is that is the languages, and so that's when the first time I've really heard Hausa.
It's always been one of the most exciting parts to hear something that I'd never heard before come to life. You know, we get so many amazing performers around the world, and getting to see now both leaders interacting with each other, it just brings the whole system to life in a way I haven't felt before when I'm either declaring war or hopefully making friends. But
well, I mean, Carl's playing, so we know where this is going.
all right, he's going to attack a commander here, and someone who's got a few units packed up, but it is a lower level commander, so I'm confident in Carl's abilities.
Yeah, so it does have a whole bunch of units, and we can attack it anyway. And the reason we can do that is because these units were able to move immediately after unpacking. Normally they cannot. I gave this particular commander, this Legatus, a promotion that lets our units move immediately, but the commander's movement is now consumed by unpacking all of these units. And we're going to go ahead and start attacking. We can see that the combat animations continue to play as the turn progresses, and that does matter for the orientation of the units. We do get flanking bonuses from doing attacks like this. And we have defeated this commander that has unpacked all of the units around it. These are now injured, so they all have damage to their health bars, and that's because we defeated the commander that they were packed into.
Excellent. Looks like we've used all of our military ability there for now.
We have.
So we'll grow another city, get through.
I know a lot of people on chat have been asking about naval combat. That's been a big question, and we're definitely going to get to that more, I'm sure, in the exploration age. But do we have anything that we can lightly speak to on that?
Yeah, so there is still naval combat that you can engage in Antiquity, but because Antiquity was much more about, in a lot of ways, smaller areas, not as much naval power, that was something that we left for the exploration age. So you're going to be along the coast, you'll have some ships that can go out there, but most of your confrontations early on are going to be on the land or supported navally. But there's always that surprise attack of seeing a ship you didn't expect coming up a navigable river, and that can certainly surprise.
You can still get your Salamis fix here. I think right now we're very much in a land-based
Situation.
Yeah,
I agree.
But a different map you might see more galleys and things.
So we do have a diplomatic action that was proposed to us here, so we get this option to support, accept, or reject, as we were discussing earlier, and we can see that this either costs us influence to support or to reject, but accepting is free. I like culture. We have plenty of influence to use here, so we're going to support this. While we're here over the Egyptian city, let's take a look at what that looks like. We can see that the buildings here are completely different from ours. The architectural style is different for each civ. And we also have a lot of other things going on in the city itself. So over here we have the Egyptian quarter. This is the necropolis. And we have a whole bunch of wonders here in the background.
And you can see that she's supported her city with those city walls.
She has,
Yeah, it's excellent.
And the last thing we have to do is our merchant. So this goes back to that Silk Roads victory you were talking about before. Merchants gather resources from other settlements, other civilization settlements. You can't trade with your own settlements. And all we're gathering here are those resources. So we're going to pick the city that's within range. These are out of range. The city within range that has the most resources, that's this one here.
And we can see we have a limit of trade routes to the different ones. So
yes.
Obviously Ashoka, we've got two. We already have one in progress, but we have a second one we can do in this one because we've advanced our relationship. We could trade with Hatshepsut, or we could trade with one of those independent powers. So Carl has selected to see where they are on the map, because we now have to move our merchant to that location, and build the trade route from there. Once we get them there, it's an immediate connection, but it's this really interesting thing where now it's not just about the merchant going there automatically. It's much more about me watching. It can be about watching the merchant. You could have people attack and not let you get access to those resources by taking out the merchants before they even get to an opponent's city.
And once the trader is established, you can still pillage it if you're at war.
Exactly. Why don't we take a quick moment too? Now that we've accessed those resources, actually we haven't gotten.
We haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
I just want. Can you take us over to the unit there, the elephant?
Oh yes.
So what I really like as well is just how different a lot of the units look from each other. You know, this is the settler for Mauryan. You know, your Roman settler looks very different.
That's a great point. We have a lot. Our unit team has done an incredible job of not only do we have the cultural variety in our city sets, and our unique units.
Yeah.
We also have just varied units. It may be the same warrior in one civ and another, but it's going to look different.
Yeah.
And I think it's just exciting to see that all come to life.
Yeah.
Not only was that the unique settler for Mauryan, but we were also able to see there that the I'm going to go ahead and put it down a barracks here. We were also able to see that unit got attacked, and it defended itself.
I think it was a naval attack.
It was a naval attack, but the unit had its own health bar. Here's that, not war weariness. There it is. War weariness, as you mentioned earlier, that's because we had a surprise war. But that settler unit defended itself. Settlers no longer need to be escorted. They now have a defensive strength. They can't attack, but they can defend. And so they are not instantly captured when they're attacked by a hostile unit. Instead, they have a health bar and can be defeated. So I have our Legacies here, and I have a bunch of units around it, and we're going to use one of these unique actions down here. So we have a couple of different things. These are orders for groups of units. This allows you to use your commander to manage your field of units much more efficiently, and their bonuses for doing so. It consumes the commander's movement, and any units that execute the order consume their movement. If not all units get to participate in the order, their unit or their movement is not consumed. So an example of that, I'm going to have all of my range units do a focus fire on this warrior up here. They will get a +1 combat strength to each unit that participates. If the warrior is defeated with, say, one archer attack and the other one doesn't get to attack, that archer will still have his unit movement available and can still do an attack normally.
Excellent. And we see the commander getting XP.
Yep.
The Saxy Gamer from YouTube, by the way, asks if commanders have replaced great generals.
They have. Yes.
But they're so much cooler.
They are
But
way
they're so much cooler.
They do have similar abilities to some great general abilities. We're not going to go into what those are at this time, but they do have some things that overlap that function.
Now, Carl, did you enhance that commander's radius, or did you forget to move him forward?
I forgot to move him forward. You're right.
Come on, Carl.
This was suboptimal play on my part. I am being distracted with questions and talking.
That is fair.
So when we founded this settlement down here, we did get a free legion. That's because of one of those civic unlocks that we have from our unique Roman tree. We're going to go ahead and immediately pack this into the commander that we had create that settlement, and we're going to start moving this guy up. I had a maneuver promotion in this commander that allows us to ignore the movement ending terrain, so we can move all the way up here, and we can watch this commander march, and you can see all of the units that are packed into that commander. So here we have a legion, and an archer. This changes dynamically based on the units that are packed in there, and you're able to assess the size of a force before you engage with it based on the units that are around.
Visually as well as through the UI. Yeah.
And that commander's, you know, guys, to reiterate, it's just taking up one tile.
Yes.
Right there.
There are four
the packed
units
army
here, right.
it's a more efficient way to move across the map,
Right.
both in terms of space as well as especially with the upgrade that Carl's put on it, in number of
Perfection is
turns
achieved.
as well.
Yeah.
Not when
And
there is
yeah,
nothing
when you
more
have
to
a
When there is
unit
nothing
packed into a commander, the commander's movement actually increases. So it moves even farther when you are grouped up like that, to really encourage you to use them to move efficiently across the map.
Now, we got so many things to talk about in there. We're getting faster as we go. I do want to touch on masteries. We can see this right here that we've got our age-specific tech tree that we're looking at. Obviously, we're pretty far in. We've unlocked a lot of things here. But you see under a few of these techs, we have a mastery. And that's basically an indicator of the depth that the civilization would go to pursue one particular technology, as well as unlocking new things. I think we got a bug going on right now, but it's letting us develop further in one concept, but it doesn't unlock anything further in the tree. It's just a way of going deeper in that concept, or I could choose to move on. So it's not as many gates without removing the complexity and the choice.
Got a promotion. Let's
The
go ahead.
question about great generals as well has also gotten our chat just talking about great people in general. Can we kind of speak to how that's taken shape in the game?
Great people are now unique to each, or to certain civs. So we're able to see that with Egypt. We do have game guides up on our website, civilization.com. And we can see on there's a list of Egyptian great people. So great people are no longer a global resource that other civilizations compete with. Oh, this guy is hurting. We're going to pull that legion back. They're no longer a global resource. Instead, they are on a civ by civ basis.
Carl, I really appreciate your ability to eloquently answer questions and fight a war.
I do my best, as we have already seen with the positioning of the commander.
Yeah,
it doesn't always work
It
out.
would have been better if you moved that guy up. This war would have gone much better.
Well, it's going pretty well so far.
Chat said you were just giving them a chance.
Yes,
which I agree.
you are correct. This legion is pretty far forward and is very hurt. So we're going to pillage this tile, which will allow us to heal.
But just to clarify on the great people bit, it's not just Egypt that gets unique great
Correct.
people. There's some other.
There are others. Which ones they are, we're
Which ones they
not
are
ready
is-
to talk about yet.
Yes.
So like civs have their own unique great people, do all civs have 2 buildings unique to them as well? That's been a question from chat.
That's a great question. The answer is no. Some civilizations have unique buildings, in which case they do have 2 of them, and a unique quarter when you combine them. Other civilizations have a unique tile improvement. Now, the way that works is a little bit different from those standard tile improvements like the woodcutter and the farm and the plantations that we've already seen. Instead, when you have a unique tile improvement, it has to be built on top of an existing tile improvement, because you have to have a population there. And so you place down your farm, let's say, and then you are able to build your unique tile improvement with production on top of that existing tile improvement, replacing it. However, it does not replace that previous tile improvements yields. Instead, it just adds to them. And you'll see that in the descriptions for those tile improvements. And then any buildings that you have that enhance it, a warehouse building such as the granary says on it that it adds to farms, that does not get removed either. So if you are building a unique tile improvement on top of a farm, you keep the farm yield, you keep your granary yield, it's just giving you more.
It's additive.
It's additive,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think I want to make sure Carl's flying through here pretty quick. I'm sure people are going to pause through and find all the juicy bits that we're not quite talking about. I know we want to get this city captured.
Yeah, I'm trying to get through here.
We're getting, so this is great. I wanted to get to this real quick. We'll pause just a quick second. This is one of those things I mentioned earlier. Resources are not traded in diplomacy. We now have this resource management. And this is not only the resources I have from inside my civilization, but those I've gotten by building trade routes with those other civs. And as you can see in here, Carl can maybe choose where that salt is going to go, because you now actually get to assign them and get the bonuses based on where you want that. And now that just stacked it. So Rome's yields went up based on the salt that you put in. So you can choose at certain times to move the resources around. Some are going to get better bonuses in cities or towns or your capital. And at the top, we saw our empire level resources, which are going to affect everywhere all at once. And those don't have to be assigned. You just, once you get them, they're yours as long as you have access to that resource.
Yeah, I think here too, this gives a certain kind of a feeling of Antiquity Empire in that you're kind of you've got a broad hinterland that is bringing in things to create a glorious central capital if you so wish to do that.
Yeah, and I think it's to the earlier question about the economic gameplay. We saw how the Silk Roads, getting those resources, getting access to all those is very evocative for antiquity. There's something really exciting on resources. I guess we're not going to, I'm going to hold it so I don't get in trouble. So I guess we're going to keep going through this combat, see if Carl gets there, maybe on the next turn. Otherwise,
I think we're pretty close here.
pretty close. It's probably about time for us to see what's coming in the next era, or the next age. We'll do a jump
Let
through
arms yield to
age
the
transition.
Toga.
We got a few screens to show you what that's like. But right now, before we do that, Carl, you can go. You can
Yeah,
just keep
so
going.
we've unlocked the last unique civic to Rome, which is Senatus Populosque Romanus, which is the Senate and people of Rome. This gives us a series of unique benefits. We get an additional social policy slot. We increase our settlement limit, and we are now back at 6 out of 6. We will go over that again when we capture this settlement here in a moment. We get a tradition, and we talked about this momentarily earlier. Traditions are social policies that are unique to that civilization.
We'll see more on that at age transition.
I'm actually going to slot this right away, so we'll see that right now
Okay.
here in a second. And our wonder is available in our unique civics tree. Every civ has an associated wonder. This does appear in either the normal tech tree or the normal civic tree, but it also appears in that civ's civic tree. So they have a different route to it that might allow them to access it earlier or in a different way, and then they can start building it earlier and potentially faster.
All right. Unfortunately, we're going to come up against time on this.
Okay.
So
That's fine.
So what would happen if we were able to capture that city?
So if we were able to capture that city, it would join our empire. It would exceed our settlement limit, which is fine. We would get a happiness penalty, but that's okay. But we would then control that city. We could choose whether to raise it, which will destroy it over a couple of turns, or we can choose to keep it. And if we were to keep it, it then has an occupation penalty, and we are able to improve it and build in it as normal. It becomes a town when we capture it.
In our demo at Gamescom, we gave the audience the option of keeping or raising the city, and most of the audiences chose to burn it to the ground.
I think there's one last thing we want to talk about, which was the crisis system, which I know there's been a lot of questions around. And you saw as Carl loaded us into that later game that the age progress had moved up. That happens as we complete our legacy, those checkpoints that we looked at.
Yep.
It happens as we get through every turn. There's a little bit of progress. There's a few other things that you can do to sort of move that meter up. As it gets pretty high up, the crisis system comes online, which is now you're not just battling your opponents, racing for the end, becoming the best, but the world is now set upon you. There's challenges from outside that you have to react to. Mm-hmm. Now, depending on which of the crises comes up and what age you're in and who you're playing as, some of them may be a little easier, a little harder, and you have to decide, are we going to power through this, or are we going to pivot and try and go around and get something that maybe we weren't planning? So we'll talk more about the crisis system, but it is that extra spice that comes and really makes some increased tension and excitement at the end of it.
I'm not sure what kind of spice you're used to, but
I don't handle spice very well.
yeah,
so.
apparently. But yeah, and it's something where again we're trying to think about at the end of the Antiquity era, what are the forces, and they may be dramatic upheavals in one way or another, maybe just a change in the fundamental structure of society. In the see Roma up here. What happens with the Western Empire is you get kind of a regional loyalty starts to manifest. Well, no, it's your area of expertise. But the rise of the vernacular as time moves on, the rise of local powers.
Yeah, you have. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things that happens with the fall of Rome. There's the outside influences. There's internal corruption. It got too big to support itself. There's a whole bunch of different factors there that sort of cause its collapse. And as you said, you're sort of battling the rest of the map, the rest of the world, different challenges arise that force you to make some very difficult decisions.
And it's those things that bring us to that transition where the gameplay and the history come together, and we get to go into the next age. And I think at this point, we're going to probably be able to jump you through that age transition. I think Sarah's got a couple of caveats to give you here.
Yes, yes. So we are showing off the age transition. I will say the age transition shows a lot of information. So we have just covered up a few of those spoilers, but we are going to walk through what that looks like with you all.
And this is the moment that we see right now. This is in-game. The Antiquity Age has ended. That crisis has been the thing that triggered it narratively, but also defined my gameplay experience. And now I'm going to get to move on and get to see a screen that's going to walk me through all of the rewards that I unlocked. And this is giving me, there's a few other tabs in here, which we can probably talk about later. But right now you can see because of that legacy progress that we made, we've earned points. We've unlocked new things that's going to sort of allow us to make the choices and the options that we have. After we make this choice, we get to go on and make one of the most exciting choices, which is, who are we going to be? You want to talk a little bit about what we have option-wise here. We're going to pick the Normans. That's the one option we have available.
Yes.
At least that's not masked.
Yeah. I mean, in a normal game, there would be more than just the one option.
Right.
But because of, secrecy.
And this is a great opportunity to talk about the choices that are here and why the choices are here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of in past games, obviously you just played straight through, and we didn't have this choice every time. Now we have this choice every single time. This is a spot where you're going to always pick who are we going to become, what are we going to do with it.
Yeah.
And in this case, we have the Normans. We don't have the Abbasid because it wasn't a natural unlock based on the choices we made, and we didn't do the gameplay.
Yeah. And same thing with Chola, as we can see here. So these have a lock icon on them. We're not able to select them. They are visible to us, but we can't pick them because, like you said, we didn't have anything that granted them to us through the gameplay. But Normans are available, so if we were to select that, we would then come up and see what they have as part of their civilization kit.
So let's go ahead and let's take a look at what that Norman selection screen would look like for us. And then, Dr. Johnson, what is the connection between the Normans and the Romans here? What are we talking about?
Yeah, this may sound a little bit surprising if you're really into the nitty-gritty progression of cultures in Western Europe. It may not be, okay, so Normans are way up there in northwestern France, and then they take over England, and we think of the Norman Knights, and we think of the Battle of Hastings being pretty far away from the centers of Roman power. But we're trying to think about links and not necessarily the anointed successor of a place, but rather places that were influenced, inflected by this. I think we had the case of London.
Yes. So London is a city that was founded by Rome. It was Londinium, and this was a Roman outpost that grew into a Roman town. There's a lot of different layers of history that happen. Like you said, the Normans invade England, they capture London, it becomes a Norman city, and history is built in layers, and London has layers to it. We actually, Ed talks a lot about this. He did a whole presentation at PAX West. We have that video available on our YouTube channel for anybody who's interested in seeing it and learning more details about Ed's vision for that. But it started as Rome. And so even though you mentioned that Normans started in France and then they go to England, and those are different periods in their history, just as I said earlier, we're looking at Rome as a whole and no longer just a single point. We're representing everything in Rome from the 12 Tables, which is the start of their government, to the Senate and people of Rome at the end. The Normans, we're looking at a variety of different things too. We have France, we have England, and Rome was in both of those places. That was both part of the Roman Empire at one point.
And for the Normans, they are influenced there by Rome via Gaul, via this long chain of historical connections that we're not going to represent, because to do so, you'd have like 15 little mini games where suddenly you're playing as Gaul, and then you're playing as like Francia, and then you're playing as this and this and this. This is
broad strokes.
Yeah, let's just take 2 points on this chain.
Yeah.
And again, when we talk about the Normans, do we mean Normandy? Do we mean the Vikings who settled in Normandy? Do we mean the Norman Knights and William the Conqueror and the Battle of Hastings in this era?
I think we try to represent a little bit of all of it.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think that this is one of those great moments to talk. Like, I love every time we talk about what civs could lead to what civs. There's so much to unpack within that. There's so much context. There's so much history, and obviously, history is one of those things that we always want to reflect. We always want to make sure that the choices that you've made in one age lead into the other, and we're going to see some of that when we jump back to gameplay. We'll see the consistencies of what does carry into your exploration civ that because of the choices, because of the gameplay. And some of that is the direct gameplay on the map. Some of it is also just, like you said, who you were. We were Rome, so this is one of the possible logical choices. We've got one that's hidden on here. That could be a gameplay thing that you could do to unlock this as well. You know, being Rome is not the only way to unlock the Normans. You could do it via gameplay, which you're hiding, or Greece.
Right, oh my gosh, that brings us to our Civ reveal, which is extremely exciting. We are revealing Greece today on stream, and we're going to be adding a game guide to the Civilization website, so definitely check that out.
And I know that a lot of people wanted to know a little bit more about the icon in the upper corner. I was supposed to mention that earlier. We're going to talk a little bit more. There's a lot of exciting player level developments and things that we're going to be able to expand on in future live streams.
Yes.
All right. Well, we are already hauling along pretty well, but we did want to have a little bit of time to play as Mauryan. So are you ready for that, Carl?
I think we need to actually check out Rome in the exploration age.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds
We're
even
all
better.
running full
even
speed
better.
to try and get
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, so if we jump back into game here, we have done our age transition and we have selected Normans. So this is Rome as Augustus transitioned into the Norman civilization in the very first turn of exploration here. And we can see that this is the same Rome that we were just playing as. This is the same city, it's the same map. We have just moved forward in time.
We can even see we've still got the wonders that we built.
We have our wonders.
unique quarters there.
Unique quarters,
our
yeah.
Roman Forum is still here. Our palace has changed. It's now a Norman palace.
Can you push in a
zoom
little bit
Yeah,
more?
we'll
Yeah, and we
zoom
had-
in here. And we can see that the buildings, the population buildings that fill out the districts here have changed architectural style as well. But the other buildings here are those Roman antiquity buildings, and those are still present. We get to keep all of this stuff as we move forward. If we look at some of our other settlements up here, we do have the settlements that we captured, all the towns that we founded, those are still here. We're at 8 out of 8 settlements, and we can even see that we have some of the tile improvements that Aksum gets because they had built them while we were still attacking this settlement, and we captured that. We get to keep those ourselves, and they transition with us. We still have them in the exploration age. And our relationships are still here. That's still part of it. It carries forward.
Yeah, and there's a few other things we'll get to go through as we go through the rest of this turn, but it's just like basking in sort of like, oh, this is the same game, right? This
Yeah.
is not, I didn't reset. I had a few things sort of change, a few things level out to keep the world interesting and challenging, but at the same time, I won't walk in and be like, wait, what's going on? Or I
Right.
don't know what this world is.
And
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I think also in looking at any one of these cities, too, you kind of can see the possibilities of history. So you came into to Rome via one link, or you came into the Normans via one link. You could have taken a different link in a different way, and I think that is also the case. Speaking as a historian here too, is that when you look back, there is no one destiny to which we are inevitably moved forward, nor is there one origin that we come from. We are always of multiple places
Yes.
and destined
Yes.
for someplace uncertain.
And I think in that dynamism of, how many things we could be made of, we have the age transition choices.
We do have
we
that.
get to show
There's
off.
two last things. I'm
Come on,
jumping
Carl.
back to our gameplay,
go,
pulling
go,
you
go.
guys back in here. There are other things besides just the buildings that we have on the map that do carry forward as part of this transition. We can see here this is the commander that we had. Our other one is in one of our other settlements here. Our promoted commanders carry forward. It's no longer the Roman unique one. It's now a basic one because it's not a Roman unique unit, but it has all the promotions.
It's a Norman commander,
It's
and
now a Norman
they
commander.
don't have a unique commander. Yeah.
But it still has all the promotions that it had. And lastly, we still have those unique traditions that we were talking about earlier. This is part of our Roman identity. We still have these. We're still able to slot them as our social policies, and this continues to stack as we go forward. So as we play through an entire campaign, we're able to layer our civilization choices together to get the infrastructure added together, the traditions added together, and all of those things create a whole new gameplay experience that changes every single time.
I think
you
it's a
play.
great point to call these out because in the last age we had the civics for the Antiquity Age and we had the Roman civics that we could unlock traditions with. Now we have the exploration civic tree that everyone has the same access to, but now we have the Norman specific civic tree, so we can unlock Norman traditions to carry forward as we go into the next age. But let's go ahead and do that age transition.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and start the exploration age, and at the very beginning we get to spend those legacy points on the things that we unlocked as part of the legacy paths that we completed in the previous age. So again, all of this is a result of the progress that we had made, and the things that we have available to choose here are because of the choices that we had achieved.
Right, these are those points that we unlocked
Yes.
from going through the legacy path earlier.
So we have our 4 legacy path points, and then we do have 1 wild point here, and we can spend these on a variety of different types of legacy perks. Here we have our golden age for the culture. We also have our golden age for the economic legacy path. We completed both of those all the way to the very
so
end.
this is a great point of our legacy paths are not exclusive. You can complete multiple. You can pursue as many as you want, and you're not in direct competition with each other. You just want to get as far and as much as you can. And now we have more options to choose from, which means we can choose to approach the exploration age differently than we maybe could have had we not gotten as many legacy points completed.
That said, you can only have 1 golden age perk.
Right.
So we've unlocked 2. I selected the Silk Roads one. We do not get Wonders of the Ancient World. That is now grayed out as a choice for us.
And I did see a question from chat regarding golden ages. Are there dark ages as well? Is that something we'll see?
There are dark ages as well. We're not revealing what those details are, but if you do not complete any progress in a legacy path, you do get a dark age perk that you can choose, which changes your gameplay a significant amount in a really interesting way.
Got it.
And those are different for every single legacy path.
And I think one of my favorite things to point out here is just the option to change your capital, which I think is...
And that's free.
And that's free, yeah. So you can decide exploration age. We'll dive deeper in it in future live streams. You'll understand why you want to do that. But as I talked about earlier, you've got the idea that there's going to be some more naval gameplay. So you might have been a landlocked civilization before, or at least land capital. And now you say, well, we're going to move our capital over to the coast because we're going to be people that go out and look across the sea to see what's next. Yeah. And that could be a really big pivot from someone who is maybe focused on conquest just within their borders. So,
absolutely. And I just selected that card or that perk. So as we advance here, we can see that we still have Roma, but Roma is no longer a capital. This city has been renamed and our palace is now here. This is our new capital location.
Obviously, so much more we could deep dive going through the exploration age, but today we were trying to focus on antiquity and age transition. I think we got through that. We're going to go ahead and jump over and take a look at another antiquity situation. Andrew, you want to tell us who we're going to see?
Sure. We're going Mauryan now?
We are.
Okay. So now we're gonna move back. We saw Ashoka briefly in our Roman playthrough. Now we're going to be Ashoka here, and we're gonna look at our at Maurya, India. And so here is a case where we have a kind of through line, more or less, within India from Maurya to Chola to Mughal. Now I hesitated a little bit saying through line because Chola is in a very different part of what is currently India than Maurya was, than the Mughals were based. It is only in retrospect that these places kind of come together as a political unity. But that said, here we are. This is the capital of Pataliputra here, and we've got what I really like. It may be a minor issue for the audience, but for me, looking at the palace there, it took so long to try to get good reference and talking back and forth with art to say, well, exactly what were the architectural styles of Mauryan architecture. It's a mixture of guesswork and some reference and some archaeology, but I love the amount of work that goes into a lot of these little things. With antiquity stuff, it's going to sometimes be guesswork.
I think it's a great example too. The palace is incredible, but even just looking at the land around it, the buildings, the population centers where people live, it immediately feels very different than what we had when we were playing as Rome in our other game.
Yeah.
And we got Carl exploring the map, finding a couple more of these discoveries, giving us some more choices.
I'm not going to damage our unit. I'm just going to take the happiness here. This is happiness towards a celebration. And speaking of, we have a celebration available to pick. This will give us a new social policy slot, as well as allow us to pick one of these 2 bonuses that will last for the next 10 turns. I am going to go ahead and select food because I think we're doing some early unit building still, and I don't want to commit to building buildings.
And some people probably have noticed, but this is turn 13. We are not on turn 1 in this antiquity game, so we already got a few things underway.
We did a little bit of exploring as part of that, and one of the things that we've revealed is this amazing navigable river into a series of lakes that is snaking along into the continent here, and we're going to continue to explore along this shoreline to see how far it goes, what we can uncover. This is definitely going to be a place that we're going to want to settle as we continue to expand.
This has been the kind of thing that when I think about the mentality and the mantra we've had of history is built in layers. I am already thinking of, yes, I want a city on that coast, so when I get to exploration, that may become my capital.
On the Great Lakes,
even on a Great Lake, because it's like, okay, cool, I have all the advantages of being in the center of the continent, as well as the access to the ocean with my naval power.
This one.
So here we've completed mysticism, and this will give us our choice of pantheon. And Maria's unique ability is that they get to select 2 pantheons. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. We have a whole list of pantheons here to choose from, and we get to pick 2 of these to keep. Most of these require that the city has an altar in order to benefit from the bonuses. So we're going to want to make sure to build our altar in this settlement, and that will give us whatever 2 we pick. They both apply to the same altar. There's a ton of different options here. I am going to go with ones that are going to really enhance our on-map yields. So I think I'm going to take Goddess of the Harvest, which is very similar to what a granary does. And I am going to take God of the Forest because we also have a lot of vegetated tiles here. These are rainforest tiles because it's a tropical biome. They give science as their biome yield. And so by picking those and then we build an altar, we will get all of this yield benefit onto the map. And again, these are called out as a warehouse bonus, and as I was saying with unique tile improvements earlier, these do not get removed when you build your unique tile improvement. So that'll just stay there and continue to stack up.
Yeah, I think this is a great moment to call back to what we talked about earlier, that the pantheons is the sort of the representation of the religion ideas that we see in the Antiquity Age.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we don't have time to go too much farther within that. So we're gonna have to take a rest there. So we did get to see a huge slice of antiquity today, but I do know that we do have some questions from chat that we want to try to answer, just a couple if we can.
Yes, we do have quite a few questions from chat, and just to preface, if we didn't get to every question today, we are going to have more opportunities for questions in the future. Thank you guys so much for leaving the questions for our devs. I have a few that I've plucked out. The first, I love this question. As devs, how do you pick and choose which civs/leaders will be in the game?
That is, I could probably talk another. Do we have another live stream worth of time? No, it is an amazing collaborative process with our team internally. There is no one way in which we do it. Sometimes it begins with our narrative team or historians looking at who is important at that time. Sometimes it begins with our designers looking at what is the mechanism that we need to highlight. And we're always looking at the representation, both for portions of the world, for different peoples, for different identities. and working as a large group with all of our partners internally, with our publisher, even sometimes reaching out to external groups to get insights and perspectives that we don't have. So it is just it's an exciting, long, huge process to go through that I could do another stream on.
Yeah, I think for me, one thing that is important for me, and important for I think Civilization as a game, and the essence of Civilization is that it was always global. It was not a story of, Egypt turns into Greece, and Greece turns, or like a story of Rome conquering the world. It was always a global perspective, even from the very beginning. And so I think what I sought to bring to things is really looking at, trying to take that perspective and see what are the global forces going on at different points in time, and then also what are the regional forces. So it may be that this or that power is not, influencing everything around the globe, but they really are groundbreaking or influential within a particular area.
There is no definition of what's important or what's right or what's the best. It is a constant conversation about, is it important for the global, is it the region, as you said. I think that's great.
Right.
And I think that what's exciting about that process is we're always learning as we go through it. Even someone who comes in with, this would be the perfect one because of these reasons, and it's like someone else has another idea, and they're just always ping-ponging. It's frankly just an exciting conversation to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're definitely excited to show off a lot more of those civilizations and leaders as well. We've had quite a few questions about this. Can't pin it down to one user, but a lot of our players want to hear more about the AI. That's definitely a hot topic. Hearing about the improvements to AI that have been made. Can we speak to that at all? And can we also speak a little bit to how the AI makes decisions during that transition process too?
I love how everyone looks right at me. Yeah. I've never written a line of code for this game. No. What I can say about that is that, there's been a lot of investment in the AI this time. We have a bigger AI team than we ever have had. We have more people involved, and frankly, more planning around it earlier on in the process. So in a lot of ways, it's an increased investment. On top of that, there's been a lot of design changes that allow the AI to focus in on gameplay, because we're not talking about the march from the first turn of antiquity to the end with zero change. The AI has clearer objectives, just like the player has clearer objectives within each age. So we're looking at clearer problem spaces. So from sort of a mechanical stance there, that's a great advantage. On top of that, with these pathways, these historical options, as well as the gameplay options, we are allowed to give the AI a little bit more direction in some of their choices, because, if you're this leader, you're more likely to pick this civ because it was a historical connection or a regional connection, or because this happened in this age, you've unlocked this, and there's a really good gameplay opportunity for you to take this one. So giving the AI a strong weighting on the choices they make based on those connections has been, at the age transition, has been a really big opportunity that we've tried to capitalize on.
That's really awesome. A lot of our players too are wondering about natural disasters, environmental effects. Can you guys speak to that at all?
Yeah, we didn't happen to see any of those really pop up here, but they are back. We do have a wide variety of them. They are gorgeous. The art looks fantastic. But there's, like I said, a big variety. We have volcanoes, we have storms, and those, they will pillage things, they will destroy your buildings, they will damage your units, and then they will deposit a whole bunch of yields on the map. And those are bigger and cooler than they've ever been before, so we're really excited to showcase that.
Well, mountains smoke a little, don't they?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And volcanoes, I saw a specific question. Have volcanoes made it into the game as well?
They are back.
Awesome, awesome. So a lot of our players talk about tall versus wide gameplay, right?
Yes.
Do you kind of focus on a small amount of cities and really build them up, or do you kind of expand outward? I'm getting some specific questions about how many tiles can you expand in a city. We can get into the nitty-gritty a little if you're comfortable.
Sure. So the number of tiles you can expand is the same as Civ 6. We've not changed the core foundation there. We have our 33, 33, 33 rule, where we have 33% of the game that's the same, 33% of the game that's new, and 33% of the game that is iteration and updates. So that 33% of the game that's the same, that includes how the core of a city functions, the tiles that it can work, the range of that. So you're still settling the same distance between each city. There has to be 3 tiles between each, so 4 tiles exactly apart. You're still working out to 3 tiles. You can acquire tiles in your borders farther than that under certain conditions, but you are working the land 3 tiles out. If you build a massive urban sprawl and take up all of your urban or all of your rural districts, all of your tile improvements with urban tiles instead, you're not going to be producing from the land in that settlement. You're going to have to support it with towns. That's where that wide versus tall really comes into play here, is that town and city mechanic, and then how you're using your specialists.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that, you know, we've had civs where one was favored over the other, but the team has done an incredible job through those systems, like the city limit that you have, the settlement cap, putting penalties in place, happiness, throttling your yields if you're unhappy. So I think it's safe to say both are meant to be viable based on the strategies and how you like to play.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Can we speak at all a little bit to the multiplayer experience in Civilization and sort of what that looks like, especially around the Antiquity Age?
Yes. So I think we're going to go a lot more into detail into multiplayer later, but we have revealed that we have how many? What's the player count for Antiquity? Is it 5? I think it's 5. It goes up to a standard size map. And you're all on the same landmass, just as we've seen in the gameplay here today. You're all there, and that's because later on the world expands, and that's part of the gameplay now, is that the world gets bigger, and we'll go into the details of how that works and why that works at a later date.
And I think it's relevant to discuss, though, that there is a very strong gameplay reason why those numbers are different, because
Yes.
the gameplay changes when you talk about the lands that are far, far away that you maybe aren't playing with in Antiquity. You know, there's so much that relies on that part of the game to work in a certain way. Obviously, we got some feedback. We're listening. We have some ideas that we're going to look to explore, but we definitely want to make sure we deliver that Antiquity experience so that everyone in the game is playing the right Antiquity experience.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then a couple more specific questions, if you don't mind. I'll just go through 2. Dude with bad jokes on Twitch asks, if you kill a settler, does it die? Do you capture the settler? Does it turn into a worker? What happens?
I thought that question might come up. The settler now gets destroyed. You do not capture settlers, and of course there are no builders or workers anymore, so you cannot capture those either. Instead, you're destroying the unit completely.
Got it. And Sean Fuzz on YouTube asks, how are roads built? I saw that come up as well.
It's a great question. Roads are automatic to a certain range. So if you were to settle really, really far apart, I don't remember that range off the top of my head. I think it's 10 tiles. But if you settle really far apart, you will not create a road. If you settle within 10 tiles, you will create a road back to your capital. All roads lead to Rome, as it were. Even if you're not playing as Rome, the road is created to your capital. Then we saw merchants earlier, and we talked about how you move a merchant to a city and create a trade route there. If it is a land trade route, it creates a road for that as well. And then the merchant has an ability to create a road. So if you have a settlement that does not have a road in between them, because the road is going to the capital and not to each other, you can use a merchant to create a road there.
Got it. Yeah, there are a lot of very mechanic-specific questions. And one of the things that I just wanted to shout out is it took us, we had a lot of turns in the Antiquity Age, and we still, it feels like there's so much more to reveal. So we have a lot of live streams coming up. We're going to be diving into the Exploration Age more as well. But it really just goes to show how full, I think, these ages feel when you play them as well.
It's hard to hold us back.
What's that?
It was hard to hold us back. We want to keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to thank you guys for taking time from working on the game to come be on the live stream today. So we've been joined today by Andrew Fredrickson, the lead producer of Sid Meier's Civilization VII.
Thank you, Pete.
Dr. Andrew Johnson, the lead historian on Civilization VII. And Carl, he who is crowned with iron, Harrison.
I have no recognition or title. I had to work on that.
I feel like I have to work on
Yeah,
that too.
we got to step up.
Lead, okay.
Well, I mean, a good one, not just a work one.
Ooh, all right, asking a lot. I want to remind you that you can follow us at civilization.com. There's gameplay guides posted up there. So after today's stream, for example, we'll be adding the gameplay guide to Greece. That's pretty cool. Follow us on our social medias. I know they've been putting them up over the course of the stream at CivGame on Civilization, youtube.com/civilization. Hopefully the stream will get posted to there. But we've got one more thing to share with you before we go today, right, Sarah?
Yes, and not only that, I want to call out quickly that we have our first developer diary going live on Steam as well, so definitely be sure to check that out. We're going over ages in depth, written by Ed Beach, so take a look at that. I also, yes, am super excited to reveal our first look of Hatshepsut, which we will show on screen right now.
So the return of the first look videos is going to be fantastic.
Hatshepsut's glorious reign bolstered trade, infrastructure, and artistic innovation. Her ambition to create a magnificent, wonder-filled empire is rivaled by few others in history.
Brinquets orbis terrarum.
She accomplished it all by taking advantage of the powerful Nile River, a major influence in her leader design. As Hatshepsut, build your cities near navigable rivers for a production boost to buildings and wonders. And be sure to trade for resources to turn your empire into a cultural powerhouse. Consider pairing Hatshepsut with her native civ, Egypt, or the Exploration Age civ, Abbasid, whose cultural and scientific bonuses can amplify the power of your many wonders. Or choose a different path, all your own. But whatever you build, remember to build something you believe in.